Hello and welcome everyone to the Consumer Protection and Accessibility Advisory Committee, or CPAAC meeting. I'm here to call this meeting to order. My name is Elizabeth Hill, and I am a co-chair for the CPAAC. And I'm representing the National Association of State Agencies of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. I would like to introduce my fellow co-chair, Logan Colas. Logan, please turn your video on.
Hello, everyone. My name is Logan Colas. I am the Director of Technology Policy at the American Consumer Institute and also a co-chair with Elizabeth Hill of the CPAAC. I'd like to thank everybody for coming over today. And I believe at this point, I'm going to turn it back to Elizabeth to give just a couple of quick remarks on how you can contact us during the meeting.
Now I would like to introduce or welcome all of the members that we have here in the audience. We have an agenda for today's meeting. I would like to let the members of the audience know that you will have an opportunity for questions and comments at the end of the agenda. You will have that opportunity. Also, you can email any questions that you have to livequestions@fcc.gov. And that email is available for you as well throughout the meeting if you have any questions or comments for the members. Now it is my honor and pleasure to welcome Commissioner Ana Gomez to share some remarks. So let's welcome Commissioner Gomez.
Good afternoon, Consumer Protection and Accessibility Advisory Committee. Welcome. Thank you for the invitation to share a few words with you today. I wish I could have joined in person. At this moment, as you watch this video, I am wrapping up testimony before Congress. Now, when I last joined you guys, you were newly the Consumer Protection and Accessibility Advisory Committee. Since then, you have taken on a host of new responsibilities to advise us on accessibility issues and the needs and interests of consumers. I hope your time in the committee this far has inspired you to continue to bring your valuable perspectives to the FCC. I know the Advancements in Accessible Communications Technologies Working Group has been hard at work thinking through recommendations that help us increase meaningful access to modern communications technologies for people with disabilities. I think it is important that as innovation advances, we encourage accessibility by design, and I look forward to seeing your final report. The Protecting Consumers Through Advancements in Robocall Mitigation Efforts Working Group has also been hard at work. As you know, robocalls are the main complaint we receive from consumers. And while we keep expanding our efforts to end this scourge, bad actors innovate rapidly and continue to find ways to make unwanted robocalls. That is why I am glad we have your expertise to help us address this problem and to reduce risks to consumers. I look forward to hearing all your recommendations. I know how much work goes into being part of an advisory committee and ultimately presenting thoughtful, experience-based recommendations to the agency. I applaud you for your dedication to consumers. Your continued collaboration and expertise is so beneficial and helps us accomplish our mission to expand services and to protect consumers. I sincerely thank you for your work, and I wish you a very productive and even fun meeting today.
Thank you, Commissioner Gomez, for your remarks. And we do look forward to a productive and fun meeting today. I would like to next introduce the Chief of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau. Ed, would you please come to the screen?
Thanks, Elizabeth. And welcome to the Consumer Protection and Accessibility Advisory Committee, or CPAAC, meeting today. I'm Ed Bartholomew, Chief of the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau here at the FCC. And I want to start by sharing my thanks with each of you. Your contributions of time and expertise are what drives the CPAAC and its thoughtful work product. Last September at our first meeting, Chairman Carr announced a new policy approach to tackling the scourge of illegal robocalls, attacking them at every stage of a call's life cycle or all along the call's path from origin to completion. And over the last 9 months, we've been busy with 6 commission-level items that each work to deter or stop bad traffic at different points of the call journey. To keep bad actors from ever placing a call, we've kicked off rulemakings that would strengthen Know Your Customer rules to prevent bad actors from accessing our networks, tightening access to numbering resources, and exploring the use of fees or bonds to financially deter illegal robocalls that originate abroad. To restore trust in calls that are made, we've kicked off rulemakings that would improve call authentication standards and deter the use of U.S. area codes when a call originates overseas. To stop the bad traffic as it moves along the call path, we've kicked off rulemakings that would improve call blocking tools for providers so they can stop suspected traffic on its journey, require blocking of certain types of traffic, and ensure that all voice service providers at all points in the call path are accountable and actively working to protect consumers from illegal calls. And finally, for calls that do reach your phone, we've kicked off a rulemaking that explores giving consumers more accurate caller name and other information so they don't have to guess whether the call they receive is one they want to answer. We've been on a Know Your theme for the last couple of robocall items, and today you will hear more about our Know Your Customer and our Know Your Upstream Provider items. We've also been diligently at work advancing accessibility for communication services. At your February meeting, we shared information on our TRS modernization items, and in April, the Commission initiated a new proceeding that explores amending the audible crawl rule through a further notice of proposed rulemaking. Our proposed change would eliminate an unworkable provision while ensuring that people who are visually impaired continue to receive the critical emergency information they need. This action aims to keep that information available in an accessible audio format while long-term modernized solutions are developed. And comments on that proceeding are due June 15th, with replies due June 29th. And as we look ahead, we're developing our 2026 biennial report on the CVAA. We appreciate the input that many of you have shared in response to our public notice seeking comment, and we're looking forward to your continued engagement on this important assessment. Beyond these important policy portfolios, the Commission has continued to educate consumers about fraud and the importance of connectivity. And later today, we'll highlight a few of our recent initiatives in this space. Finally, I'm excited to hear more about the report from the Advancements in Accessible Communications Technologies Working Group and updates from the Protecting Consumers Through Advancements in Robocall Mitigation Efforts Working Group during today's meeting. Thank you for your diligent work since last September on these topics. Before I close, I'd like to mention and thank our CPAAC co-chairs, Elizabeth Hill of the National Association of State Agencies of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing, and Logan Colas of the American Consumer Institute. We're grateful for the hard work of the Accessibility Working Group co-chairs Claire Stanley of the American Council of the Blind and Joel Thayer of the Digital Progress Institute, and our Robocall Working Group co-chairs John Braille of the National Consumer League and Angela Dice of AT&T. We appreciate everyone's leadership, time, and commitment. I also want to take a moment to thank the many Commission staff who are helping to support today's meeting and making it a success. Susie Rosen-Singleton, Chief of our Disability Rights Office, Kayla Hernandez-Ujoa, Acting Chief of the Consumer Affairs and Outreach Division, the co-designated federal officers, Josh Mendelson and David Perez, and the CPAC Working Group Liaisons, David Savaline and Molly Bergdorf. Amy Creasap are the FCC's Section 504 compliance officer, the interpreters, captioners, and the commission meeting room staff who are helping us to live stream and host this event today. And many thanks to others from the FCC who continue to support the important work of this committee. And with that, I will pass things back over to Elizabeth. I hope you have a great and successful meeting this afternoon.
Thank you, Edward, for your remarks and your support. I echo the thanks that you have shared for both of our DFOs, the designated federal officers, all of the members of the CPAC, the audience, and everyone who has made this possible today. Next, I would like to turn it over to my co-chair, Logan Colas, to take the next section of the agenda. Logan?
Hello, everyone. My name is Logan Colas. I'm the Director of Technology Policy at the American Consumer Institute and also a co-chair with Elizabeth Hill of the CPAC. I'd first and foremost, I'd just like to thank everybody for taking time out of their busy schedules. I know it can be very difficult to find time this time of year. Some of you I know are in DC, and for other CPAC meetings, I know you all have made more than reasonable accommodations to make your way out to DC so we could have successful collaboration on such important issues. For today, I'm very thankful that everybody was willing and able to join us virtually. I hope that that contributes to collaboration and our ability to have this much needed conversation so that we can continue to do our very important work. So for that, I'm very thankful for everybody that has been able to jump on the call today, and just very thankful for the co-chairs and for all the help from everybody from the FCC that we've had along the way. So that, with that being said, I know none of this would have been possible without our co-designated federal officers, David Perez and Joshua Mendelson. So I'd like to take a second to just extend our gratitude to them in particular for all the time and effort that they've put in to make the workings of the CPAC possible. And then to just take a second and allow David Perez, who's been invaluable to some of our work, to say a couple of remarks and give some housekeeping rules.
Thank you, Logan. We're going to take a few minutes to review housekeeping rules and protocols that we ask you to follow to ensure a smooth and effective meeting that is accessible to everyone. During the meeting, only one person has the floor at a time. If you wish to speak, please use the raise your hand function and turn on your video. We ask the CPAC members to wait until one of the co-chairs calls on you. Once you are recognized, and for the benefit of the participants online and the live stream, please wait a moment to allow the technical team members to spotlight you. Then identify yourself and your organization. Pace yourself and take pauses. When you are done with your part, please use the lower your hand feature on Teams and turn off your video. Please keep your microphone on mute until you are speaking, and then please mute yourself after your remarks have concluded. Thank you so much for joining our meeting today. At this time, I'd like to pass it over to Josh Mendelson, my co-designated federal officer here at the FCC for the CPAC.
Hello, everyone. I am Joshua Mendelson, and I am a co-DFO along with David Perez, and I'm really thrilled to be working with all of you today. This meeting is open to the public and is being live streamed currently on fcc.gov/live. And it is on the FCC's YouTube page as well. Public participation is welcome, and we will have some time toward the end of the meeting to address any questions or comments from the public. Please feel free to email us any questions or comments as well. at livequestions@fcc.gov. If you have any questions or comments before that portion of the meeting. Any quick questions from the members before I turn the floor back over to the CPAC co-chairs? I will turn it over to Logan next for a roll call. Seeing no questions. All right, Logan, back to you.
Thank you for that, Josh. With that being said, I think Josh already alluded to the fact that we're going to go ahead and get started with roll call. To thank everybody for being here today and to just acknowledge that you guys are here. But before we do that, just a couple of housekeeping announcements so we can just make sure that the roll call goes smoothly because we're online. I'm going to call on each organization alphabetically. When I do so, the representative for that organization should please turn on your video, wait a couple of seconds so the camera can turn to you, and then unmute yourself. You will then be spotlighted, and then please introduce yourself. And then when you are done, please turn the video off and mute yourself, and I will call the next organization. From what I believe I've been told through the registry for people that have RSVP'd for today's CPAC meeting through the roll call, from what I understand, that the National Consumer Law Center is absent today. We haven't heard from the Kapoor Center, and Common Sense, I believe, is going to be on for the first little bit of this roll call. So with that being said, I'm going to go ahead and turn over to start actually calling some of the organizations. So when I do, please take a few seconds, unmute yourself, say your organization, and then you can turn that off. And then I will take that as a sign to move on to the next organization. So let's go ahead and get started. First on the list is AARP.
Am I spotlighted?
You are Corlett. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Corlett Hannon with AARP. Thank you.
The American Association of People with Disabilities, AAPD.
Hi, sorry, Teams is somehow not letting me turn on my camera, but this is Mitraya Shah, Technology Policy Director at the American Association of People with Disabilities.
Thank you for joining us. Obviously, I'm Logan Colas with the American Consumer Institute, who's next on the list. Now I will turn to the American Council of the Blind, ACB.
Hi, I'm Claire Stanley. I'm the Director of Advocacy and Governmental Affairs for the American Council of the Blind.
Thank you, Claire. Next up is Apple.
Good afternoon. I'm Megan Anstall from Apple, and I'm joined online by my alternate, James Craig, who's virtually waving at you as well. Thanks for having us today.
We're all virtually waving back. AT&T.
Hello, this is Angela Days, Director of Federal Regulatory Affairs with AT&T, and thank you for having us today.
Comcast, NBC, Universal.
Hi, everybody. Tom Ludkowski, Vice President Accessibility at Comcast.
Common Sense. I think Mina. I think we already noted that Mina was going to try and jump on, so she might have already had to jump off. Consumer Technology Association, CTA.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is David Grossman, Vice President of Policy and Regulatory Affairs at the Consumer Technology Association. Thanks for having us.
CTIA, the Wireless Association.
Good afternoon, everyone. This is Christian Segura, Assistant Vice President of Regulatory Affairs at CPAAC. Thanks for having us. Really looking forward to the discussion today.
Deaf equality.
Hello, everyone. My name is Zainab Al-Kebsi, and I am the Chief Policy Officer at Deaf Equality. Thank you for hosting the meeting today. Looking forward to the discussion.
I believe the Digital Progress Institute may not be online yet, but I think I've heard that they're trying to get online. So I will go ahead and call the organization. If not, I'll make a note to circle back to them at the end. So Digital Progress Institute. Completely fine. I'll circle back. Google.
Hello, everyone. Jonathan Mark, Corporate Counsel for Communications Law at Google. Excited to participate in this discussion.
Helen Keller, National Center, HKNC. I'll be sure to circle back with an opportunity at the end to see if anybody has jumped online by then. The Internet and Competitive Network Association, Encompass.
Hello, everyone. I'm Taylor Apsher, attorney and policy advisor for Encompass. Looking forward to today's discussion. Thank you.
Let's go ahead and recognize the Kapoor Center. I think I said at the beginning, I wasn't sure if they were going to be on today, but if you are, please say your name and organization. The National Association of Broadcasters.
Joshua Pilot, representing the National Association of Broadcasters. Thank you very much for having us today.
The National Association of State Agencies of Deaf and Hard of Hearing.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I am Elizabeth Hill, here representing NASAGHH, the National Association of State Agencies Serving the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. Thank you.
Happy to have you, Elizabeth. The National Center for Resource Development, NCRD. Hey, Tina, would you mind unmuting yourself?
Sorry. Good afternoon, everyone. Tina Metzer, co-founder of National Center for Resource Development and Rural Rise. Thank you for having us.
Thanks for being here. The National Consumer Law Center. Actually, I think I already mentioned that the National Consumer Law Center would not be on today, but I'll go ahead and throw it out there in case I happen to be wrong about that. The National Consumers League.
Good afternoon. This is John Brio, Vice President of Public Policy at the National Consumers League.
NCTA, the Internet and Television Association.
Hello, this is Pam Arluck, Deputy Chief Legal Officer from NCTA, the Internet and Television Association. Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you. Project Goal.
Hi, this is Debbie Berlin with the project to get older adults online. Thank you for hosting this meeting. Looking forward to it.
The Rural Community College Alliance. I'll go ahead and mark that down. T-Mobile US.
Good afternoon. This is Carl Gerner, Senior Corporate Counsel of Federal Regulatory Affairs at T-Mobile. Looking forward to this meeting. Thank you. Thank you for having us.
US Telecom, the Broadband Association.
Hi, Diana Eisner, Vice President of Regulatory and Legal Affairs. Thanks for having us.
And finally, Verizon Communications.
Hello, this is Zachary Bastian, Verizon, and also on the bridge is my co-member Ian Dillner of Verizon. Thanks for having us.
And then as promised, I think Joel may have been able to join from the Digital Progress Institute. So the Digital Progress Institute.
Hi, Joel Thayer, President of the Digital Progress Institute. Happy to be here and sorry I was late.
Absolutely no problem. And then I already said that there were a few absent organizations. I believe that those would be I took a note here, the Kapoor Center. I know the National Consumer Law Center is not with us today. Common Sense, I know is going to try to join, but I think we may have missed them on this one. And then the Rural Community College Alliance were absent. With that being said, if I happen to list anybody as absent that is now here, please feel free to use the raise your hand function and I will recognize you to acknowledge that you're here today. Well, thank you for everyone for being here. At this time, we're going to move on to the next section on the report and the recommendations with the Advancements in Accessible Communication Technologies Working Group. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to my co-chair, Elizabeth Hill, to introduce who will be giving the presentations. Thank you.
Thank you, Logan, and thank you everyone for responding to the roll call. As Logan mentioned, we are now going to move toward report outs, looking at potential advancements in accessible communications technologies and that working group's report. It is my pleasure to introduce the co-chairs and welcome them to provide a summary of the report. Joel Thayer and Claire Stanley. Thank you both for your hard work and all of the members of the working group for their hard work as well. You know, this has taken many months and a number of meetings. So thank you again. And with that, I will turn it over to Joel and Claire. The floor is yours.
Everyone, again, this is Joel Thayer, one of the co-chairs. Waiting for Claire. There she is.
Great.
Claire, would you like to start off or you want me to rattle through?
Yeah, I can start and Joel can jump in. First and foremost, we just wanted to say thank you to the entire working group for all the input that everybody put in. There was definitely a lot of back and forth and discussion. So we just wanted to say thank you to the whole working group and a special emphasis to our drafting team. There was a lot of work that went into drafting it and editing it. So thank you. A shout out to those of you who are part of the drafting team. You know who you are. So thank you. We had multiple meetings over the last several months, and we hope that everybody felt like your voice was heard. As those who are in the working group know, we had many sessions of editing and re-editing, so we hope that everybody felt like your voice was heard. We also want to say thank you to the FCC for the opportunity to give our input for this report, and we really hope that the input that comes from this report will be something that'll help to yield future policy in the information communication technology space. We really feel like it's really expansive. It has a lot going on with it, so we hope that it will, move forward. And I'll turn it over to Joel in a minute to talk about the report was divided up into 4 sections. Building off of what had previously been done, but then really talking about the evolution of communication technology and where it's going. A lot, like I said before, a lot of discussion went into these sections with a lot of editing and re-editing. And the 3rd section specifically that Joel can emphasize in a minute, it has some explicit questions that were asked to the FCC. So those are things that we can go over a little bit if people have questions, but we really hope that those specific questions that we asked will really yield, again, discussion and the move forward with potential policies and future report asks and things like that, so that we can move forward with communication technology as technology evolves and we see a lot move forward. So with that, I'll hand it over to Joel to move forward and talk about the 4 different sections and the rest of the report.
Great, thank you, Claire. And I want to echo my appreciation to everyone in the working group. This certainly was a labor of love, and also was in it worked in the midst of a government shutdown. So it took a lot of folks putting in much of our sweat equity, even when we were not really tasked to do it at the time. So this really did come. I'm really proud of this work, and I think many of the members of the group have contributed greatly to it. And so with that, I think I'll just walk through what the report actually does, and it's going to be hopefully not somewhat repetitive of what Claire has already said, but the gist of the report was really just to build on what we've already, but what the Disability Access Committee worked on years past. We wanted to give a brief update, and so the first section really goes into what of the broader categories from the previous report, and expands on them a bit on like how many things have developed and where and how technology has developed, and ultimately where we found some evolution in those technologies. And we also outline where there were maybe some gaps that need to be filled, which that leads and dovetails into the second section that goes into more detail and more granularity on specific types of technology. There was a primary focus on the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence, as many of those applications have evolved in terms of consumer use. And so we want to encompass as much as we possibly could in order to make this more of a holistic document. But we also wanted to make sure that this wasn't a document that tries to do much of the forecasting. It's more of a practical document of how folks are dealing with or engaging with these technologies today, and especially those living with disabilities, how they are leveraging it and how those uses might impact how technology is ultimately framed and leveraged at large. But that's the first. So the first section is more of a retrospective, going through the traditional categories. Then there was section 2 where we augmented some of the categories, or clarified, and then also added a few categories, which I'm assuming everyone has seen this document, because I think we put it up for comment. So I won't get into like all the specific ones unless somebody really wants me to. The last section really goes is just our broad recommendations, and just based off of all the findings that we had above and the expertise of the working group. And we essentially go through, believe, just making sure I'm not messing up the numbers, about 7 recommendations that the FCC should pursue. We think that it's appropriate for the FCC to take certain actions. We don't really get into specifics as to which actions they should take. We wanted to give the FCC that flexibility in order to make that assessment based off the findings of the report. And then there's the 4th section, which really goes, it's not really a section, it's an appendix, where we outline the statutory authority that the FCC currently has. That was more or less a didactic tool rather than an informative tool, rather than us instructing or making a comment on a specific on the FCC's general authority. It's I think when we initially had it in there was many folks in the group who felt that it was useful to have at least some baseline for the general public, and because granted this will be made public, to have a more or less comprehensive list of all the statutes that are at play here. And special shout out to Megan Stoll at Apple, who really did the yeoman's work on that particular section. It's not easy to do when you have these many statutes at play, and be able to synthesize them and put them in a coherent and concise manner is no easy feat. But I think I think it really was a useful addition. And but that's essentially what we've done. So it's broken up to 3 substantive sections and then 1 appendix. And I believe we distributed this a while back, and for comments we didn't receive any. So I mean, I hope that implies that we did a pretty good job. But as always, we're very much open to folks' feedback. So if anyone has any questions, thoughts, concerns, we're open to listening. I'll take that as tacit applause, well, just to sum up, we are very happy to have gotten this over the line. It's took many hours of Claire and of our life to make sure that we got this into a good spot. Not to mention all the very extensive and very positive feedback we received from everyone in the working group. This really couldn't have been done by any one person. So we're very appreciative of all the thoughtful comments that we received. We think we got a pretty solid document here, and yeah, just want to express my appreciation to them, the staff of the FCC, my co-chair Claire. Like this was really I don't want to over exaggerate by calling it a Herculean feat, but it certainly was one that required a lot of effort and time, and we really can't emphasize our appreciation enough of everyone who worked on this. So thank you all. So I don't know if I'm supposed to direct, but I see a hand up. John, I believe it's yours.
Yes, it is mine. Number one, Joel, congratulations to you and the entire working group on a tremendous report. I can only imagine how much work has gone into this, and I think it's a very solid document. I'm just curious, to what extent did feedback you receive from the commission in advance of today's meeting, when you share this document with them, result in changes to the document? Just curious about that.
Excellent question. So it was pretty minimal. I think it was mostly, and Claire, correct me if I'm wrong on this, but I recall correctly, it was mainly grammatical issues, and then there was a few clarification uh, uh, edits that they had, but I think that was more or less oriented towards one section of the appendix, because the appendix, I can't remember exactly which statute, and Claire, if you remember or recall, let me know, or fill this in, but I think the idea, the gist of it was that they wanted, and I'm only bringing this up because I think this is the only one that was somewhat substantive, but not necessarily substantive. It was just, we didn't really, the FCC didn't see the connection between how they described the statute and what it had to do with our general charge. And I think we added one, it was a sentence, and I think that was I think that was all the edits, but mainly it was, hey, you missed a period here, and or there's a what is there's this word here. I don't think you meant to use that word, and then that one clarification. But I'll turn it over to Claire to see if I missed anything.
Yeah, I won't spend too much time echoing Joel because he covered it. I think we were eager to hear back from the FCC on what, you know, we might have needed to amend or play with to change. And I think we were pleasantly surprised that there wasn't a ton of changes that need to be made. So hopefully that means we're on the right track.
Great. Thank you so much.
Any other questions? Oh, I'm saying Liz will come and do voting. So I will pass it over to Liz.
Thank you, Joel and Claire. Thank you so much for leading that discussion and the working group and all of that work that went into creating this report. I know there were many hours spent on that, so thank you so much. If the members don't have any other questions or want more discussion, we can then proceed to a vote. Okay, so I will do it's similar to roll call as co-chair Logan just did. I will call on the organization in alphabetical order. When I call on your organization, you can turn your video on. You can say aye for support or nay for oppose. And then you can turn off your video and mute. Okay. We have AARP, American Association of Retired Persons.
Yes, I vote in favor of the report. Thank you.
Thank you. American Association of People with Disabilities.
I vote in the favor. It's aye for AD.
Thank you. American Consumer Institute.
Hello, everyone. I'd just like to commend the working group for all their hard work. I know it took a lot of time and effort, and a lot of sweat equity was put into what I think has turned out to be a fantastic report. So I'd just like to give my personal commendations and say I appreciate all the hard work that the working group was able to put in. And to the extent that the Robocall mitigation working group was also able to advise or give any input on that, I'm also thankful that we were able to do that as well. With that being said, I, of course, like to vote in favor, so aye.
Thank you, Logan. American Council for the Blind, ACB.
Yes, the American Council of the Vote, American Council of the Blind votes.
Apple.
we vote to approve, so aye.
Thank you. AT&T.
AT&T votes aye. I would also like to take a moment and congratulate my colleagues on the Accessibility Working Group on a job well done.
Thank you. Comcast, NBC Universal.
Comcast votes in favor. Aye.
Thank you. Consumer Technology Association.
The Consumer Technology Association votes aye.
Thank you. CTIA, the Wireless Association.
Thanks to all Accessibility Working Group for all the work on this. CTIA votes aye to approve the report.
Thank you. Deaf Equality. Deaf Equality votes aye. And I would like to thank the working group co-chairs and the drafting committee for all of their hard work. And to my colleagues on that working group, thank you so much for the engagement and dialogue. Thanks. Thank you. Digital Progress Institute.
Digital Progress Institute votes aye.
Thank you. Google.
Google votes aye. Thank you to the Accessibility Committee for your work on this.
Thank you. Helen Keller National Center. Helen Keller National Center, are you here? We can circle back to HKNC. The Internet and Competitive Network Association.
Hello, Encompass votes aye in support of the report. Thank you very much to everyone who was a part of the working group who contributed.
Thank you. National Association of Broadcasters.
NAB votes yes. Thank you.
Thank you. National Association of State Agencies of the Deaf and Hard of Hearing. I'm honored and pleased to vote in favor. Aye. National Center for Resource Development.
We vote in support of the report.
Thank you. National Consumer League, National Consumers League.
Hi, this is John Brayo. The National Consumers League votes aye.
NCTA, the Internet and Television Association.
Yes, hi. NCTA votes aye, and thank you so much to everyone for all of your hard work.
Thank you. Project Goal.
Project Goal votes aye. Thank you.
Thank you. Rural Community College Alliance. Rural Community College Alliance. We can circle back. T-Mobile.
This is Carl Gerder. T-Mobile votes aye on the report and recommendation and thanks the subcommittee for all of their work.
Thank you. US Telecom, the Broadband Association.
US Telecom votes aye. Thank you to everyone for all their work on this.
Thank you. Verizon Communications.
This is Zachary Bastian speaking. Verizon votes yes, aye on the item.
Thank you. I do want to double check. Helen Keller National Center, are you here? And also Rural Community College Alliance. Okay. Well, with that, thank you again to Joel and Claire. Thank you both to the co-chairs and to the membership of the group, the drafting committee. Thank you all so much for all of the hard work. It is a wonderful report, and I do want to congratulate you on the adoption and passing of this report. So congratulations. Thank you. Okay, I do have the pleasure of asking Susie Rosen Singleton and Michael as well to give updates on the FCC's accessibility work and to facilitate facilitate on tech transitions. Hello. Hello. And thank you for that introduction. Thank you for all that you do, and congratulations on your recommendation being voted upon. I know there is a lot of work involved in that, so congratulations and hands waving to you all. I'm here to talk about the disability rights offices, our updates. The last time we were here was February 24th of 2026. And Ed actually just provided some updates on our behalf, and he spoke about the CVAA biennial report to Congress. And yes, we will be releasing a public notice shortly over the summer to invite your comments once again on the comments that we incorporated from you all in the public notice. And to have that ready for Congress by October 8th. So thank you for your engagement. There are 3 topics that we will be addressing in this report, which is required by the 21st Century Communications and Video Accessibility Act. Those 3 are: first, compliance with accessibility requirements for telecommunications and advanced communication services and equipment, and internet browsers that are built in mobile phones. Secondly, whether accessibility barriers exist with respect to new communications technologies. And thirdly, the effect of the CVAA's accessibility record keeping and enforcement requirements on the development and deployment of new communications technologies. So we are looking forward to continuing engagement with you all. I do want to also highlight that in March, we celebrated the 30th anniversary of the Telecommunications Act of 1996. We did have a few events, and we will continue to acknowledge and celebrate milestones for accessibility. We'll keep you all posted, and do watch access info at fcc.gov. That is a listserv where you can get apprised about any upcoming events or rulemakings and so forth. I do just want to spotlight one area of rulemaking that is happening now, and then I will turn it over to Michael to continue with TRS before we start our dialogue. We do want to save plenty of time to dialogue with you all about tech transitions. So, first of all, emergency access. This is an area that is very active right now. I do want to spotlight the accessibility pieces in that space. First of all, as Ed already mentioned, the Bureau Chief, Ed Bartholomew already mentioned, we have an open rulemaking to amend a requirement that has never been enforced since 2015. And the comment period will close on June 29th. So I won't belabor that discussion because Ed has already brought that information to you all. But do let us know if you have any questions about that item. We do currently have a waiver until November 29th of 2027, or until there is a ruling on the NAB, National Association of the Broadcasters petition for rulemaking, whichever is sooner. So that is one highlight. Another highlight is the CSRIC, or CSRIC, is another advisory committee that we have here. You all are the CPAAC as one, but we also have the CSRIC. They just started their 10th term, and to spell it out, C is the Communication Security Interoperability Council. So they started their 10th term, and it was just announced the date for their first meeting will be June 23rd. And there are several key members. Well, they're all key members, but several members who are key are disability organizations. So congratulations to you all for being on that full council. They will have 6 working groups, and one of those working groups will be focused on 911 accessibility. So we do have a window for application that will close tomorrow for people who want to serve only on that working group for 911 accessibility. So that's another highlight there. The last highlight I would like to talk about is emergency access. We have announced that on June 25th, which is this month, we will consider 2 draft items about emergency access. The first one is about next generation 911 and to improve the reliability and interoperability of next generation 911 services. This, if passed, will announce a comment due dates if passed, but that will ask questions about direct video calling, or DVC, by 911 authorized entities. It will ask what are the benefits, the costs of DVC for individuals who use ASL and 911 authorities, as well as public safety answering points, or PSAPs. Those are 911 call centers and so forth. So it does ask some questions about a pilot program for DVC to 911. We also ask about technology architecture and how to implement effective DVC at 911 call centers. So first of those 2 draft items for the June 25th open meeting here at the FCC, that was that one. The second draft item focuses on emergency alerting. We're now looking at improving the emergency alert system, or EAS, as well as the wireless emergency alert, or WEA. We're looking at how to make those 2 more efficient and effective for people who rely on those alerts. We're also asking some questions about accessibility, such as symbols. Should we include symbols in our alerts so that people can quickly see and it may be more accessible for some people with disabilities. That's the question. Second topic in that item has to do with text-to-speech technologies for EAS and WIA messages for earthquakes and other alerts to ensure accessibility to screen readers and so forth. So that's the quick highlights that I have. Before I turn it over to Michael, I would like to do a quick shout out and hands waving here to the FCC staff, the DFOs, the designated federal officers, Joshua Mendelson and David Perez, and the working group liaisons, Molly Bergdorf and David Savalane. I also want to recognize the Disability Rights Office leadership who makes accessibility a reality here at the FCC. So I would like to shout out to Lisa Wilson Edwards, Michael Scott, and Will Shell. They amplify accessibility every day, and also many other DRO staff, but that would take too long to mention everyone. But those who are working behind the scenes here, I do want to thank you all for your commitment and work. And of course, the interpreters, the captioners, and the CMR staff. Plus, you all, the CPAAC members, and the co-chairs, Elizabeth Hill and Logan Colas, and the working group co-chairs as well. Your time is so greatly appreciated. We look forward to continuing with you all. And at this point, I will pass it over to Michael. Happy to answer any questions too.
Well, thank you, Susie. So I just have a few updates for you on telecommunication relay services, or TRS. So first, back in March, on March 10th, the FCC released a public notice which granted full certification to Clear Captions to provide Internet Protocol caption telephone service. Second, on March 17th, we released a public notice announcing the comment dates for the internet-based TRS modernization, notice of proposed rulemaking. That comment period closed on May 18th. We thank all those who have submitted comments, and we look forward to moving forward with that proceeding. On May 22nd, the FCC released a public notice which sought comment on the TRS Fund Administrator's annual report and proposed provider compensation formulas, funding requirements, and contribution factors for the upcoming TRS fund year, which will run from July 1st through June 30th, 2027. The comment period on that proceeding closes on June 16th. And then also one more addition that was just released yesterday, so it wasn't in my initial talking points. On June 9th, the FCC released a public notice granting an application filed by Nagish, now doing business as Rilo, for full certification to provide Internet Protocol caption telephone service and Internet Protocol relay service. Okay. Now I'll transition a little bit to our dialogue on technology transition. To better meet the needs of consumers and small businesses across America, companies are modernizing their communication networks to provide faster, more reliable service. At the FCC, we often talk about this proceeding at this process as a tech transition. Now, as part of this transition, the telephone and internet providers are retiring aging copper line network used to provide voice services in areas where modern fiber, satellite, and wireless services are available as a replacement for both internet and voice services. These newer technologies better meet consumers' needs and are available as a replacement for both internet and voice services. These newer technologies better meet consumer needs, are easier to maintain, and provide a number of benefits, including enhanced robocall protections, next-gen 911 capabilities, improved reliability, and access to telehealth and other digital tools. Regardless of the technology used for phone service, FCC rules continue to ensure that you have access to 911 and accessible relay communications services. Now, to get us started on our dialogue, I'd like to raise our first question, which is, what are the most significant impacts, positive or negative, that your stakeholders have experienced or anticipate experiencing as voice services transition to an all IP network? Now, first up, I see Diana Eisner with her hand up. So Diana, please go ahead.
Hi, thank you so much. So I'm with US Telecom, and our members are really the ones leading the charge on these technology transitions and network modernization. And we and our members are really excited about the terrific accessibility and consumer protection opportunities that getting rid of legacy copper networks and moving to next generation digital networks presents. So on the accessibility front, smartphones today come with built-in captioning, live transcription that's easy to use during phone calls, video conference calls, or in-person conversations. Android phones offer both live transcribe and live caption. iPhones now include live captions. And smartphones are really excellent for using real-time text or IP-based forms of relay, such as video relay service and IP caption telephone service, that provide a more accessible and seamless experience than traditional relay services like TTY. And there are a lot of third-party applications out there that enable traditional relay services and live transcription of telephone calls. Consumers that switch to IP-based services also benefit on the protection front from a better ability to block and prevent illegal robocalls, which we all know cost billions of dollars in consumer fraud every year. And most non-traditional TDM voice services have the capability to block unwanted robocalls before they even reach a consumer's phone. So our members, our stakeholders, our members and their customers are really excited about the opportunities this tech transitions moment we're in now presents us. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Next, I see Angela. So let's go to Angela Diaz, please.
Hi, this is Angela with AT&T. I'd like to highlight that there are many benefits that an all IP network will unlock for consumers. For example, improved network reliability. IP provides more robocall and scan protection and NG911 benefits. Today, less than 2% of our eligible customers are still using legacy copper voice technology, as most customers are choosing modern services such as fiber and wireless. One area where customers will have and can expect to see benefits is in reliability. As copper lines are decades old, they're highly susceptible to water damage and frequent targets of theft. When emergencies happen, wireless service is a reliable option and can be used on the go to stay connected. And when fiber needs repairing, we can fix it faster than copper. Another area where consumers will see benefits, as Diana mentioned, is in the fight against illegal and unwanted robocalls. IP networks running on technologies like fiber and wireless allow for enhanced features that help providers combat illegal robocalls. The best example of this is Stir Shaken, which only works on IP networks, as TDM-based networks cannot carry the information needed for authentication. Lastly, the transition to more modern networks will help facilitate upgrades to NG911, which is widely recognized as a telecommunications infrastructure that public safety communications rely on. Built on an IP-based network, NG911 provides enhanced capabilities that are better suited to support modern-day communications. Switching from copper-based networks to network technology allows for higher bandwidth, lower latency, and greater reliability, all essential for supporting NG911's advanced features. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. I may call on Megan Stoll next.
Thank you, David. Apple wants users to benefit from seamless interactions and to be able to reap benefits from new digital tools in all aspects of their lives. And we support new and improved ways to communicate when conditions are normal, like as expected on your average day, as well as ways to interact with public safety officials, first responders, or loved ones in emergencies. For instance, we've taken an all of the above approach to connectivity with devices and features using all the various available flavors of spectrum allocations, whether that's licensed, unlicensed, or shared. And we've also enabled new methods of satellite connectivity through features like emergency SOS via satellite and messages via satellite, which are available even in the absence of cellular or Wi-Fi connectivity. These are just some of the sort of positive connectivity impacts that we see as this transition is ongoing. Thank you for the question.
Thank you so much. Go to Christian Segura next.
Thanks. And maybe just echoing what others have said, it's clear that consumers are enjoying the benefits of extensive voice competition. And wireless is leading the way with almost 80% of adults nationwide who rely exclusively on wireless phone service. And it's no wonder given the low prices and ubiquitous on-the-go coverage. Indeed, in 2024, Americans logged nearly 2.4 trillion minutes on voice calls, which is nearly 30 billion more voice minutes in 2024 than back in 2023. So by far, those who still choose to have a home phone can use IP-based phone service. And as the FCC identified in its most recent Communications Marketplace report, that although the public switch telephone network was once the only means to connect, there now exists a multitude of other voice service options for consumers. And we're seeing a lot of important positive effects of the IP transition for wireless consumers. As Angela mentioned, call ID authentication using the STIR/SHAKEN framework is an important tool to protecting wireless consumers from scam calls, and it doesn't work for incoming legacy voice calls. The IP transition will also help companies invest in services that consumers want, such as wireless benefits to the environment by reducing wasteful energy consumption and mitigating the risk of danger to networks used for wireless backhaul. IP-based wireless networks allow for additional use of AI to help providers orchestrate traffic, predict congestion, allocate resources dynamically, and secure systems at machine speed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let me call on Maitreya Shah.
Thank you. I think we echo the excitement around the room. And, I think modernization to IP-based services would offer people with disabilities many opportunities to benefit from internet-based assistive technologies as well. And I think we are working towards that. At the same time, I think in our work, we have, I think, time and again highlighted the need for being mindful of people with disabilities who still rely on conventional communication methods and voice services. And I think there's still a significant digital divide that people with disabilities face. The Pew Research Center's data from 2021 is a good example. The smartphone usage between people with disabilities and non-disabled people has almost a 16% gap, which is quite significant. There is also evidence of such a wide gap in broadband and internet access. I think at the same time, there is also a lack of data, robust data on how many people with disabilities, particularly in rural and underserved communities, still rely on conventional voice services and fixed line services for their day-to-day communication needs, as well as to access emergency support. And I think without adequately considering these consumers, any modernization plan would risk leaving many people with disabilities and families behind. So I think APD has been consistently voicing our concern to modernization plans that would disproportionately impact people with disabilities and would come at the cost of accessibility. We also similarly raised our concerns to the Commission's proposal of eliminating support for voice services under the Lifeline program. So I think our position and our call is for more consideration of accessibility and to see that we have adequate alternative accessible solutions available for every person with disability before we completely modernize our infrastructure and change things from copper to IP-based services. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your comments. If I can go next to Zainab Al-Kepsi.
This is Zainab signing here. IP networks do play an important role in accessibility, for example, with video relay services and video phones, as well as other modern relay services, DVC, Next Generation 911, among many others. However, it can impact accessibility as well. We may get to a world where everyone has access to broadband technology in that transition without leaving anyone behind. We need to ensure we don't leave anyone behind. 19 million folks of this population do not have broadband access. So we need to really ensure that those remaining individuals can have access to broadband to ensure that they have digital access for all. We cannot forget deaf and hard of hearing people who rely on technology for accessibility. We cannot leave them behind if they may not have an option to access that network. These changes are important, but we do need to, again, ensure that we're not leaving people with disabilities behind in the process. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Zainab. So I'm being mindful of our time. We have about 2 more minutes left in our discussion. So we might be able to get to one more comment, depending on how quickly we go. So I'll go to Claire.
Thank you so much. This is Claire with ACB. I echo the excitement of everybody in the virtual room, but I just wanted to build off and affirm what Maitreya and Zainab were hitting on. Although the technology is phenomenal and we know it can do great things, we don't, like Zainab said, we don't want to leave a fraction or a portion of the community behind for persons with disabilities who don't have access for a whole slew of reasons. And I'll just quickly emphasize, for instance, in the blind and low vision community, it skews very much so to the older population for obvious reasons. And for a lot of different reasons, the older community are less likely to use the newer IP technologies and have kept the landlines. And they're less likely to be able to use or adapt to newer technologies like smartphones. And so we still see a big portion of our community using more traditional landlines and things like that. They have physical buttons. The technology is easy to use. So we definitely know we're going to get there one day, and it's great. But in the interim, we can't leave that community behind. And so we need to think of ways to, while we're making this transition, that's probably going to take longer than we anticipate, that we need to find ways to teach people how to use this, use the different new technologies and things like that, and find transition processes instead of just completely switching the switch overnight. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Claire. And I think in the interest of trying to keep us on our schedule, I will pass things back over to Elizabeth. I appreciate everyone's participation today.
Thank you, Susie and Michael, for the updates and for the dialogue around accessibility and Next Generation 911. There were many wonderful and helpful supportive comments from the group, and comments along with making sure that the entire community is included in this process. Okay, thank you so much again. I will turn it over to Logan Colas, my co-chair, for the next section of the agenda. Logan, the floor is yours.
Hello, everyone. I just want to, before we move on to the next section, I just wanted to say how much I appreciated the robust debate and discussion. It's obviously a very important issue, and I appreciate all the different perspectives that we were able to highlight during that section. With all that being said, for people that are in the audience, I would just like to remind you that the public can submit questions and comments to livequestions@fcc.gov. That is, again, live questions at fcc.gov pertaining to the meeting today. That being said, I think we already went through roll call, but I don't think we've had the opportunity to introduce the Rural Community College Alliance. So Chris Breitmeyer, if you are online, would you mind unmuting yourself, turn on your camera, waiting a second for the camera to pan to you, and then saying your name, your title, and your organization? So when I call you, so the Rural Community College Alliance. Well, I guess the Rural Community College Alliance might have stepped away, so I'll come back towards the end and see if we can circle back and get them invited through roll call. But between now and then, I'd just like to, at this time, toss it over to Angela Dice and John Braille to share some updates on what's going on the AI Robocall Mitigation Working Group. Just to give a little bit of background on how our research is progressing and where we are in the report. So Angela, if you don't mind taking the floor.
Logan, if it's okay with you, this is John who's the co-chair of the working group. I think I will report out on behalf of myself and Angela.
Oh, that'd be fantastic. Go ahead, John.
Great, thank you. Thank you, Logan and the entire team for giving us the opportunity on today's agenda to give a brief update on what the Robocall Mitigation Working Group has been engaged in since our last meeting of the full CPAAC in February. As you may know, the Robocall Mitigation Working Group was given a charge letter that has 4 distinct questions addressing robocall mitigation and what the FCC and industry are doing and what can be done to help consumers avoid harmful robocalls. Of those, in addition to those 4 questions, we also have 4 additional sub-questions that we are working on. So the working group has a full plate. Fortunately, we have a great group of folks who have been very active and engaged throughout the process. Since our last meeting in February, the mitigation working group, the RMWG as we call it, has met 7 times. We have formed a drafting committee I believe it's 6 people who are actively working on putting fingers to keyboards and putting together the full recommendation document. Just to give you a sense on where we are, for February through April, we spent quite a bit of time on research and issue development in response to the charge letter, understanding the sort of questions that were being asked. And I do have to give a shout out to David Perez, Dave Savalane, their colleague John Adams, and others at the commission who have been eager and available to jump in and help us sort of answer the questions that we've had of like, what did the FCC mean by that word in the charge letter? So just wanted to give them that shout out. So from February to April, we met and did the research and issue development. In May, we have been working on the report structure and outlining of the report. We had an important milestone at the end of May where we circulated our outline to the full working group. It's a very extensive outline, and now in June we are moving into actually draft development of the full report. So this Friday we have a deadline for ourselves of finishing the 25% draft. We'll be moving through June to a 50% draft. Then in July, having a 75% draft. And by the end of the month of July, hoping to have a 95% draft that we can circulate to participating organizations on the working group for final review. Our goal is to submit the final report to the FCC by August 7th, so that we are in a position to have the full CPAAC vote on and hopefully approve the full report by our mid-September and final CPAAC meeting. So I've had a tremendous amount of really robust dialogue. Special shout out to our drafting committee who's been putting in a lot of great work. All the work the drafting committee has been doing, we have been doing our best to vet with the full working group, and their input has been invaluable in helping us build out the outline. And now as we move on towards the 25% draft, in fact, the full working group has a meeting right after this full CPAAC meeting concludes this afternoon. So very busy, but on track to meet all the deadlines we've given to ourselves, and really appreciate the input that everybody has had on the report as it stands right now. I'll stop there. Angela, my co-chair, has been an amazing partner throughout this. So Angela, if there's anything you wanted to add, feel free to jump in. Otherwise, I'm happy to take any questions that folks in the working group may have.
This is Angela. I would just echo, John's appreciation for the working group, the drafting committee, all of our FCC support, and the fact that we are excited to get this product done. Thank you all.
John, Angela, thank you so much for the update. I very much appreciate all the hard work that you guys have put in. I speak on behalf of the committee when I say that we're very thankful for your efforts. And as a part of the working group, I'm very thankful personally for all the time and effort that you guys have put in. I know it's been long hours and a lot of coordination, both in our working group and with the outside working group to make sure everything was coordinated. So I just wanted to pass along my appreciation for all the hard work that you guys have put in. It hasn't gone unnoticed. With that being said, I think it would be a good time to go ahead and move on to the next section of today's CPAAC, which is the FCC consumer protection updates. So at this time, I think Kayla, Wesley, and Chris are going to provide updates on FCC's consumer policies. I will start, I'll go one at a time. So I'll just go ahead and start by introducing Kayla Hernandez-Ulloa, Acting Chief, Consumer Affairs and Outreach Division, the CGB. Kayla, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Logan. My remarks will be really brief because I really want to cede the floor to the following speakers, but I did want to just do a brief introduction on myself and a recap of some of the things that the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau has been doing. So as was said, I am Kayla Hernandez-Ulloa, Acting Chief of the Consumer Affairs and Outreach Division, also known by our acronym CAOD. We are housed within the Consumer and Governmental Affairs Bureau, and we engage the public through outreach and education initiatives to inform the public about consumer-related regulatory programs, telecommunication issues, and other consumer issues that may impact their daily lives. At the CPAAC meeting in February, I mentioned CGB's plans for National Consumer Protection Week. If you missed the webinar where we discussed frauds and scams and the abbreviated dialing codes known as N11, the archived video is now available to watch on the FCC's YouTube channel. More recently, CGB hosted a webinar on May 27th in recognition of Older Americans Month. The webinar highlighted a variety of topics, including the importance of older Americans staying connected to prevent isolation, which can sometimes lead to becoming a victim of fraud. We discussed how technology has the potential to reduce isolation and thus be a life-changing benefit for older Americans. A few examples of how high-speed internet service can help older Americans get connected while enabling independent living included a discussion on access to life-saving telemedicine and telehealth, how to stay in touch with loved ones, families, and friends, and options for online shopping, which includes home delivery of groceries and other necessities. We discussed how social isolation has been linked to serious health risks, including higher rates of depression and anxiety, a weakened immune function, and an increased risk of heart disease, stroke, and dementia. And that's where the theme for Older Americans Month came in, Champion Your Health. Modern technology offers solutions that can help reduce loneliness and improve well-being through social connections. And more importantly, keeping engaged, whether, for example, a consumer is using video calling platforms and apps to communicate with family, friends, and loved ones, or using the personal companion tools, which many of us are very familiar with, Siri and Alexa, which use audible communication and respond to spoken commands. And these are all vehicles that can open doors to multiple community and essential services. So to do these things that I just mentioned, it's important that you or a loved one know which high-speed internet services providers are available in your location. To do this, the FCC has its national broadband map, which helps with locating these providers. A consumer can search using their address to find out what companies offer broadband service in their location, and it allows them to compare internet access plans and find the best ones that meet their needs. On June 2nd, CGB shared information via a webinar as part of a series hosted by the Elder Justice Coordinating Council, or EJCC. This was in recognition of Elder Justice Awareness Month, which is this month. The series focuses on increasing awareness, strengthening prevention efforts, and advancing coordinated response to elder abuse, neglect, and exploitation. The series also explores the evolving landscape of frauds and scams, which we expanded on the FCC's current scams and tips how to avoid scam and recognize one. There is guidance that was provided recognizing warning signs and protecting oneself, and highlighting community and facility-based resources available to support individuals who have experienced maltreatment. In closing, and as I end my remarks, I encourage you to join our mailing list to receive updated information on consumer-facing issues, request materials, or to schedule a meeting to discuss how we can partner to provide information to your community by sending an email to outreach@fcc.gov. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you, Kayla. Very much appreciate the time that you were able to spend today to give us those updates. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Wesley Platt, Chief Consumer Policy Division of the CGB. Wesley, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wes Platt, and I serve as the Chief of the Consumer Policy Division. Thank you to the committee, the working group chairs, and our designated federal officers, not just for the opportunity to speak today, but also for the CPAAC's ongoing work on these important consumer protection issues. I've been asked to provide an update on the Commission's recently adopted further notice of proposed rulemaking on enhanced Know Your Customer, or KYC, requirements for voice service providers. As you've already heard today, combating illegal robocalls is the Commission's top consumer protection priority, and the agency is taking a holistic approach to this, attacking illegal calls at every point in their life cycle. This includes things like requiring providers to block traffic from known bad actors, and even goes as far as to what tools consumers have access to. The information that appears on the screen of their devices, for example, when calls do reach them. And this item's premise is that the most effective way to prevent illegal calls from reaching American consumers is by ensuring they never make it onto the network in the first place, and that originating providers are best positioned to do that by screening new or renewing customers before they make calls. The Commission's rules already require providers to take affirmative, effective measures to know their customers, but the Commission has found that some originating providers don't do enough. Consequently, the Commission adopted this further notice in April to explore ways to provide additional clarity and fill the gap between the current general requirement and the types of rigorous KYC steps that are necessary to protect consumers. In particular, the further notice seeks comment on 5 major areas. First, customer information. The further notice asks if the Commission should require providers to obtain certain identification information from both new and renewing customers before granting access to its services. These include things like name, physical address, government-issued ID number, and an alternate telephone number. Second, verification. In other words, not just collection. The further notice also asks if providers should be required to verify the information they collect and what supporting records or methods would suffice. The concern animating this question is straightforward. Because bad actors may submit fake or stolen information, collecting it without confirming its accuracy may do little to keep them off the network. Third, enhanced requirements for higher risk customers. The further notice seeks comment on requiring more information from high volume customers, including businesses and foreign customers, such as the intended use of the service and the IP address from which calls are placed. It also asks about risk-based differences and also differences between prepaid and postpaid services. Fourth, coordinating with the call branding proceeding. The further notice seeks comment on how any new enhanced KYC requirements can complement the call branding and caller name requirements that the Commission proposed last October. And fifth, enforcement. The Commission asked or proposed strengthening accountability by assessing penalties for KYC violations on a per call basis, including a proposal to codify a base forfeiture amount of $2,500 per call. By tying each violation to a single call, the proposed structure scales the penalty of the volume of calls that a provider allows onto its network and the harm that follows. Comments on the further notice are due Thursday, June 25th, and may be filed through the Commission's electronic comment filing system. Reply comments are due Monday, July 27th. We look forward to input from all stakeholders, as a well-developed record will help the Commission strike the right balance. Thank you again for the opportunity to provide this update, and I'd be glad to follow up offline with anyone who has questions. Thank you.
Wes, thank you for the important updates on the FNPRM and KYC. We very much appreciate you taking the time to come out and give us those important updates, and also shed some light on the timeline, because I know there's a lot of things on the docket this time of year. So I know a lot of organizations are trying to organize their schedule to make sure that they can contribute to these important discussions. I believe I said earlier that I was going to call on Kayla, Wesley, and Chris. I was wrong. I'm actually going to call on Kayla, Wesley, and Mason. So at this time, I'd like to turn it over to Mason Schaefer, Attorney Advisor of the Competition Policy Division of the Wireline Competition Bureau. Mason, if you're online.
Thank you, Logan, and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Mason Sheffa, and I am an attorney advisor in the Competition Policy Division of the Wireline Competition Bureau, and I'll be standing in for Chris Laughlin, a colleague on the same proceeding that I'm about to describe. So I'm pleased to present about another item the Commission has adopted targeting illegal robocalls. As you heard Wes just mention, the Commission adopted proposed enhanced Know Your Customer obligations. And the item that I will be talking about is about Know Your Upstream Provider. So most recently at the May open meeting, the Commission adopted a further notice of proposed rulemaking that proposes measures aimed at improving Know Your Upstream Provider, or KYUP, requirements and STIR/SHAKEN oversight, raising the standards for how voice service providers apply STIR/SHAKEN attestations to calls so attestations are more trustworthy, and closing STIR/SHAKEN implementation loopholes. The FNPRM also seeks comment on issues related to TRS providers, consumer privacy, and foreign originated calls, and proposes to streamline the Commission's STIR/SHAKEN rules. These proposals would be aimed at ensuring that all voice service providers at all points in the call path are accountable and actively working to protect consumers from illegal calls. We believe these changes would not only improve the utility of STIR/SHAKEN, but also would work in concert with and enhance the foundation for several Commission and private sector anti-robocall tools, support federal and state enforcement efforts, and advance the Commission's ultimate goal of restoring trust in voice communications. So I'll now walk through the specifics of the recently adopted FNPRM. So the item seeks comment on how the STIR/SHAKEN and KYUP proposals should apply to TRS providers. It seeks comment on any privacy concerns with facilitating sharing of Know Your Upstream Provider information, such as the sharing of sensitive personal or business information. It proposes to strengthen the pre-existing KYUP requirement by establishing baseline measures all voice service providers must follow, including collecting certain information, evaluating compliance with Commission rules related to the provision of service, conducting due diligence to verify authenticity, monitoring activities, and refusing or discontinuing service after holistic totality of the circumstances evaluation fails to ensure an upstream provider is a legitimate and responsible entity that is unlikely to be the source of illegal calls. It proposes to enhance the governance authority's role in maintaining trust in the STIR/SHAKEN ecosystem by requiring that the governance authority adopt policies for issuing SPC tokens and selecting certification authorities and taking more steps to enforce those policies. It addresses improper attestation practices by proposing to codify the attestation levels established in the ATIS standards and the criteria that apply to them. It sets out requirements to satisfy the attestation level criteria, including closing an attestation knowledge gap. And it codifies prohibitions on improper attestations that are implicit in the STIR/SHAKEN standards. It also proposes to close STIR/SHAKEN implementation loopholes by clarifying definitions that govern provider STIR/SHAKEN implementation obligations, repealing at least one of the two remaining undue hardship extensions to STIR/SHAKEN implementation that may no longer be needed, requiring all providers that serve end users directly to make attestation level decisions, and ensuring calls arrive at their destination with authentication information by prohibiting intentional call routing to strip such information, requiring blocking of unauthenticated calls, and requiring all intermediate providers to authenticate any unauthenticated calls they receive. It seeks comment on how the proposals would serve to deter illegal calls that enter the United States from abroad, and whether the Commission should take further actions related to KYUP and caller ID authentication to combat the threat of problematic foreign originated calls, and whether there would be any downstream impacts of the proposals on 911 service and public safety. It proposes enforcement and accountability measures, including enhanced base forfeiture amounts for violations of existing and proposed KYUP and STIR/SHAKEN rules, proposes a requirement that voice service providers report to the Enforcement Bureau and the Governance Authority any providers they reasonably believe are or may be transmitting illegal calls or violating KYUP or authentication requirements, including improper attestations, And finally, it proposes to take a comprehensive review of the Commission's existing STIR/SHAKEN caller ID authentication rules to simplify and clarify the rules, remove unnecessary redundancy, and ensure consistency with the goal of enhancing providers' ability to understand their obligations. Thank you so much for the opportunity to present.
Mason, Kayla, and Wes, thank you all so much for taking the time to update us on all the different FCC proceedings, what you guys are seeing, how it impacts consumers. All of the updates are very much appreciated. I'm sure they'll be useful to the rest of the group as they go about their very busy schedules. At this time, I'd like to turn the call over to Joshua Mendelson, our co-DFO, who will be directing either the public participation portion or comments from the rest of the group that I think could be useful to highlight as the working group split off and consider their different subject areas, whether that be robocall mitigation or accessibility issues. So Josh, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon. Good morning to some if you are joining from the West Coast. This is Josh Mendelson. This is the part where we usually take comments and questions from the audience or through live questions at fcc.gov. However, so far for this meeting, we have not received any live questions. With that, I would like to call on a couple of people who did not have the opportunity to share their part during the tech transitions dialogue earlier. So first, I would like to call on John Brault, and then hopefully Tina M will be able to contribute as well. So John?
Hi, this is John Brault from the National Consumers League. Thank you for devoting this extra time at the end of the agenda to sort of continuing the conversation about the tech transition. I simply wanted, the comment I had intended to make during that portion of the agenda has to do with scams. So one of the things I wanted to add to the conversation was an encouragement on my behalf to the CPAAC and by the extension the FCC to be aware that we have seen in the past when there are changes in technology, not specifically just related to telecommunications technology, but others as well. We often see scammers trying to take advantage of consumer confusion over concerns about those transitions to create new fraud schemes. So for example, in the tech transition, I could imagine that scammers may be reaching out to people who receive communication about, even legitimate communication about changes to their telephone service as a entree to get them to do things like send money to a scammer over fear that if they don't, they will lose access to their telephone service. We've seen warnings about this out of the UK, for example, where they are going through a similar tech transition period. So it was more of a comment and an encouragement to the CPAAC and to the FCC that as we consider this tech transition, that the impact this is likely to have in terms of creating opportunities for scammers should be something to be considered. That's it for me.
Thank you, John, for sharing this very valuable information. I do appreciate it. I do want to check in with Tina Metzer. I wanted to see if she also would like to contribute and share some comments.
Thank you. I appreciate the extra time allowed. Excellent point, John. Very good points. And I want to echo many of the positives that we already cited by the experts earlier in the call. And I really wanted to just kind of touch on the transition, tech transition briefly. Rural America consumers, I think, are ready for modern infrastructure. We want faster networks. We want the better emergency capabilities and the connectivity that drives economic growth. We support getting there, but at the same time, I want to keep some things in mind for rural communities. In rural America, sometimes that one line is the only line. In many of the communities we serve, there's no self signal at home, which means there's no redundant network path. So I believe half of Americans over 65 still have a landline. And for many, that landline isn't a preference, it's just the only option. And we want to ensure verification of the coverage backup power, and then protect that emergency access. Again, we're very, very excited. And then one last thing that I want to bring up is for some of those with only landlines, this is a change we need to recognize. That's not as easy for some, and that's okay. It's important to have a right way to communicate these changes so that everyone understands what is happening with this tech transition, why it's so important, and what it means to them. Thank you so much for giving us this extra time at the end. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Tina. I am so glad that you had the opportunity to weigh in. We did receive one question from the public. Let me go ahead and read it out. Hi, well, not my name, but the commenter's name or the person's name is Mindy. And I'm wondering if progress toward accessibility with closed captioning is going to include music as well as spoken languages. Music is often shown as being a completely audio experience, but what if closed captioning technology was used to translate music visually? Like, instead of watching a conductor put disabled and non-disabled people to sleep with a Mozart symphony by swinging their arms around, couldn't there be a more colorful visual representation of the score itself as the music is being played? Music begins visually, and the composer Alexander Scriabin did work to use colors to represent music. The percussionist Evelyn Glennie is deaf, and she plays music by how it looks and feels. So music definitely is not just for people who are hearing. Is there work being done to use closed captioning technology to make music more accessible for both deaf and hearing individuals? That's a great question, Mindy. I would like to turn it over to Susie Rosen Singleton. She's chief of the Disability Rights Office to take that question. Hello, Mindy. This is Susie Rosen Singleton signing here. And that's a great question. I agree. Our rules at the Federal Communication Commission, we do not require any certain colors or weights or special effects for captioning, but that doesn't mean that that can't happen. In fact, for our rulemaking around next generation television, which is the move from the current ATSC 1.0 standard, moving to ATSC 3.0 standard, we ask questions about customized captions, which can include weighted captions, the ability to move captions. That's customized by the user and viewer. So we ask questions about that, and it seems that it is feasible. It's just a matter of whether or not it's available for your program. You may see that many theaters are showing creative captioning. So the feasibility for that to be incorporated into traditional television and internet protocol streamed programming, or even with ATSC 3.0, those are things that we'll keep an eye out for. So thank you so much for your interest and your question. Thank you, Susie, for taking that question. And thank you again, Mindy, for sending in your question. That is all. We haven't gotten any other questions or comments. So this does conclude the public participation component. I would like to turn it back to Logan.
Hello, everyone. I'm just going to take a couple minutes to say thank you. I know it's a busy time of year for everyone. There's a lot of things going on at the FCC, but your time and effort is very much appreciated. Of course, this meeting wouldn't be possible without our everybody at the FCC, but also our co-DFOs, David Perez and Joshua Mendelson. I very much appreciate all the time, effort, and attention to the minor details that sometimes go overlooked, that have a tendency to drag down meetings, but you guys made it run completely seamlessly, and for that I'm very thankful. I also very much appreciate the robust discussion that we had on some of the copper retirement issues today. I spent a lot of time from my perspective thinking about that through the vision of AI and how copper retirement affects will co-interact with the artificial intelligence boom. So hearing all the other important effects, I think is very much important and appreciated, and I'm glad that those were brought up so they don't get lost in the shuffle. So for that, I'm thankful for the robust participation on everything positive and all the downsides and everything, all the information that everybody was able to share. So that's very much appreciated. So just consider this my general warm regards and thank you for everybody that was able to attend online today. And at this time, I'd like to throw it over to Elizabeth Hill to give her concluding remarks. Thank you.
Thank you, Logan. I do want to echo your comments of thanks to everyone for coming today. Do appreciate everyone's participation from the members and the public, as well as both working groups. Thank you to the co-chairs of those working groups and the DFOs, as well as the other officers who were able to assist with today's meeting. I'm pleased to announce that the next meeting will be Wednesday, September 16th. It will be an in-person meeting in Washington, D.C. at the FCC's headquarters. With that, I am happy to wrap up our meeting. Thank you again, and this meeting is now adjourned.